All right, welcome everyone to the Flux Dev Meeting. Today is March the 2nd, and we have a little bit of an agenda. The first point is a round of what's happening on the way to GA. Does anyone have an update?
Yeah, so I think we have finalized all the audit things and the fuzzing is working. And we have left a single item for the documentation around Flux end-to-end and how it works. And I think that will take some time to finalize, but it's I'm not sure if we should keep the audit thing open for that. Maybe we should just close that issue given that draft. It's the explaining how Flux works end to end could spill up into a book, a book-sized documentation, which it's a major challenge on its own. So yeah, I'm for closing the audit project that we have, given that we've solved everything. We have a draft pull request. People can look at the end-to-end documentation. We have diagrams and everything else. So
Yeah, very much agreed. I think well, there's loads of stuff we could do additionally. I think the document already does a really great job explaining what's happening. So I think it is already a big improvement. And yeah, thanks to Kingdon in absence and everyone else who did reviews. And also it's your diagram that landed in there as well, right?
Yeah,
Stefan?
yeah,
super.
I've tried to create diagrams for each major feature of Flux, like how it syncs plain YAMLs and customizations, how it does that for Helm releases, how image automation works. But yeah, it's just we can definitely do more diagrams for other workflows, like, I don't know, how do we decrypt secrets when we use an external provider and so on. Those are more in detail stuff than high level view of what Flux is and what it does. Other things for GA, I don't know if it was mentioned at the last meeting that I didn't make it there. We have modified the roadmap and we have moved the RFCs out of the GA roadmap. We replaced the RFCs with the multi-tenancy lockdown that we've implemented last month. So the GA map, the GA roadmap currently doesn't have any, let's say, major blockers in terms of RFCs. What we want to do before GA is finalizing the controllers refactoring and publishing documentation on how you can extend Flux with other controllers. So it's more about now about the development docs and some guide on how you can get started with a controller if you want to do something else than what Flux does. And I think Sunny made progress with having the dev documentation that is in some repo. Sunny?
It's in my personal GitHub gist, but have to move it to the website repository.
Did we
with the official docs?
Did we decide where where those docs will be, I'm guessing is under Toolkit Dev Guides, right?
Right.
So I don't know, maybe you could open a draft pull request with what you have already and just to collect feedback on the draft pull request.
Yeah.
Nothing. There is no rush with this, but I think it's best to have them more visible to others, even if they are not finalized. And I think around refactoring, we have merged all the changes, all the code changes in source controller, but we are now working on the documentation, right, Hide?
No, I took a short sidetrack. There were some open issue or open PRs from a while ago, one about adding a bucket provider and another contribution from Microsoft to add Azure Blob support to the bucket object. I finalized the former and that has been merged, and I'm now working on making the Microsoft contribution work with all the changes. And that's taking a bit longer than expected because Azure seems to have moved from one SDK to another SDK. And I wanted to make sure that we use the newest SDK while we introduce it, because otherwise we have other work to do in a couple of months. I put up a draft from that yesterday and asked the Microsoft person for feedback. Because the authentication options, or at least the wiring of it, have changed, and I need to confirm from their side that anything they put into their original PR kind of works as expected, or at least it has feature compatibility. But I'm finalizing everything else. It has integration tests in place, which work locally, but I need to make it also work in CI. But yeah, that's looking good. And then we are moving on to the documentation, and that's the last part.
Okay, can I ask you if can we also work on the Azure Key Vault stuff? Because I'm guessing
the Azure Key Vault stuff, that's actually the nice thing. If I know how the authentication works for this one, I can copy it.
Unblock it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Then I have figured out everything out, and I know how the resource IDs and all the user IDs work. And then I can also ensure that the secret formats are the same. Because one of the problems Microsoft has is that they have like 3 different names for any value that exists due to backwards compatibility reasons. And I want to settle on the specific field names for specific things, so that at least for all the Flux controllers that are making use of Azure things, a field is just called one thing, and not that we have an account key in one controller and a secret key in another one or something.
Okay, so maybe we should create an issue in Flux 2 to revise the Azure authentication mechanism. And
is there another place we are already using it?
Yeah. So we have to look at the bucket which is new. There is nothing in source controller yet, but we have to look at the Azure Key Vault in customized controller pull request. Look at image reflector controller and how we do the automated authentication to ACR, which is yet again about authentication. We use there all sorts of keys that we look for environment variables and so on, right? So I think we should have the same authentication support and mechanism for all these 3 controllers. So it'll be source controller around Azure Blobs, customized controller around Azure KMS, and image reflector controller about Azure Container Registry.
Yeah, so what I think that needs to happen then for the image reflector controller, because the other one I can change relatively easily, is that we need to check what Go SDK there it's using. And I think for identity management, we need to move to the AZ identity package, which is like the newest package with all the different well, authentication features they have. But yeah, I can, I will create an issue now. Okay, thanks for making me aware of that.
We had to copy things in image reflector. There is a bunch of code that we had to copy it from
Is
Asia
it called
project,
Cloud
which was
Service?
abandoned. Yeah.
It's called Cloud Provider. It's from the AAD pod something. Yeah. So what I think, based on my brief research yesterday, is that basically AZ identity, that whole package, is like the newest way of doing authentication within an Azure environment, and it drops like a lot of the assumptions that the previous SDK used to have around the Azure.json file. So it only takes like a selection of the previous environment variables into account, and it's one setup, much easier to kind of scope into something that doesn't break out of boundaries. But okay.
Yeah, anyway, we have to make this change everywhere, including image reflector control. If we can get rid of all this copy-pasted code that basically sets here what kind of keys the JSON response have, its access token, is refresh token, is token type, is code, message, whatever. I'm guessing all of this should be in the new library, so we don't have to have our own JSON type declared in our source code.
Oh, but I'm looking at it now and it's using AZ identity.
The reflector?
Yeah. Oh, but that looks good. I don't think it needs changing.
Oh, nice. Okay, so I cannot say if it's new or whatever. But yeah, it's AZ core and AZ identity.
Yeah, so AZ identity is like the latest package, and the contribution from Microsoft used like the old SDK, which had it had a bit weird wiring also, because you had to like specify where the JSON file could be found, etc. And that's all gone now. Wait, I will link to the PR so it can be added to the notes. Okay, but that's one less thing to look at. Okay.
Yeah, also we need to look at this issue here, and I'm guessing we'll have the same problem in source control and customized control in the same way there is this problem in reflector control right now, where scopes are different, some are with default, some aren't, so we have to figure out what's going on here, because some people said it's not working for me, I have to change some things that we have hard-coded in our code. So that's something that will probably affect everything that we do with Azure authentication.
What the fuck? Okay. Excuse my language. Why?
Default, I have no idea what's happening here. So yeah.
But in general, it looks wrong to assume a scope, because Azure Public Cloud, like this would render if you have like a US Gov organization, then they can't actively use this because they have their own endpoint, I think, or scope. Like there's a whole list of Azure Public Cloud, Azure Gov Cloud, Azure China, and probably some others.
Yeah, so that's why I said we definitely have to revise the image reflector control code, because
okay, I will.
That's straightforward here.
I will assign this issue to, or this pull request to me, and then go over it once I'm done with like the source controller code and have all the info gathered around how it works, because that's quite painful discovery. Okay.
So when are we going to view the new docs PR for source controller? Next week?
It's Wednesday today, right? Yeah. So I think it's already 1:30 p.m. here. I think my Azure PR should be done by tomorrow. But I'm not sure how soon the Microsoft person will get back to me about any final changes. And then the doc state is basically 95% done. What needs to happen is that there are some small improvements that needs to be made to the last edit docs, because at one point we got a bit burnt out on writing documentation, and then your sentence writing gets worse. But Sunny has been doing part of that already, I think. So what I think we can do to speed up the process is to already stage the PR so that people can review it, and then we can asynchronously basically work on the remaining bits.
Yeah, I'm also for changing all the docs and not just source controller.
Yeah, I think that can happen, but I think getting the source controller release out first, even if other people can do whatever they want, but getting the source controller release out first, I think, is also critical, because that means that we can basically play chess with the other things that depend on it.
Yeah. I'm not saying blocking the release, but what I'm saying is that after you open that pull request, we should ask people to try to reorganize all the other controllers
into that structure. Yeah.
Even if they don't rewrite things, just having the same arrangement where we don't start with Go code, we start with the example and all of that, making the API docs more user-friendly, is more about moving some things around. It's not, you don't have to rewrite anything.
Yeah, and I think some of the sections around how you can work with an object, basically not the part explaining the fields, but they can basically be copied over from other Flux object, but the context just needs a bit of adjustments to, make it fit into customization or whatever. But yeah, I agree. Sunny, did you merge those doc changes you showed me into the branch, or is it still on some?
It's in a separate branch. I can merge it and create a draft here.
Yeah, I think that would be best. Is it rebased already, or that's also going to be?
So I created a new branch that is rebased against main. So it's clear.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, sounds good.
Great. Any more points on GA?
No, we are, so there is a lot of work still to be done on the documentation side. Make the API docs more user-friendly by starting with examples and reshaping how people look at the API docs, and add development docs for the GitOps toolkit and how you build a controller from scratch. So those are the main things right now for GA, besides refactoring the code, which that's quite straightforward now that we have source controller refactored, then we have a good example of how to do that for everything else.
Excellent. Super. All right. Yeah, I just see that Kingdom just merged the end-to-end docs, which is great. So I'm going to close the audit follow-up board now. Yeah, thanks again, everyone who contributed to this effort. I think it's just fantastic that we managed to get through all of this in 2 or 3 months. depending how you count. This is really great news. Cool. I have a short item regarding docs. I'm not sure if you've seen this issue 717 on the website repository. Basically, the LSN asked for an assessment of our documentation. So the CNCF Tech Docs team went over all our docs and website, and the feedback was generally very, very positive. There were a couple of points that were raised. One is, I think it would be the most work to get to this, but I think it would pay off, and it's something we already know, that the guides and the use case sections somewhat overlap, and that in general the information architecture could be revised. So I will make a slow start looking at this, because I'm also doing a couple of other things. Anyone who is generally interested in this, please let me know if you have feedback or ideas. One piece of feedback we got in that issue was from Dan Ports. He's with the I think with the Renovate team, and I liked his idea of breaking the docs maybe down a little bit into day one kind of things, so installation and the rest of it, and then day two, where you get more into the realms of managing Flux and general operations. I think that could be helpful, but it is a longer discussion to be had. So I'll be experimenting a little bit with what we can easily do here, and then luckily the CNCF Tech Docs people already offered help. So I'm going to get on a call and discussing this with them. Yeah, as I said, any help or any feedback at all would be very much appreciated. Any comments?
I like the structure presented there. My main concern is that we cannot do redirects for sections. So what we currently have, we have this ginormous page called installation, which deals with not only installation, but also advanced configuration, upgrades, I don't know, things like how you install Flux on behind the firewall, all sorts of things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And basically, when you answer issues, Slack comments, discussions, and so on, you link to that page, then the link contains go to for that particular section.
Yeah.
If we break that page into multiple pages, then install, I don't know, whatever, PSP we can't do a redirect for that, right?
Yeah.
Because that's a browser thing.
Yeah. Okay, I'll pay special attention to that. That's good feedback.
One thing we could do and not mess up completely Google search and everything else is to keep that page around and keep the titles, remove the body and add links there, and keep that for some time, hide it in the menu, but keep it as a live page for people that are going there from Slack messages or, I don't know, Google search, which is quite impactful, right? We don't want to break all the things that Google has indexed. So, and we can't use the redirect in our docs site because there is no place to redirect from the install docs, because the install docs now will be like 10 pages. So where do you redirect them?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my only concern. But I like the new structure.
Good. Okay. I'll see what we can do there. Yeah, that's great feedback. Okay. The next agenda item is about Git related PRs and issues. And there's a bunch of links.
Yeah, so just wanted to kind of walk through quickly where we are with each one of those. So we have a PR. I think he did just made some more comments there for me to work on, but that pretty much seems to fix the issue when we're fetching Helm charts. So in the past, every time that we're getting downloading a Helm chart, would create a new connection and just leave it hanging. So that seems so far to have fixed the issue, which is really good. And we're doing that by pretty much owning the transport and reusing that with a transport pool across the connections that we're using. We also set an idle time for the connections to close, which means that, if we have too many open connections transports open, because we have a lot of downloads happening, maybe concurrently or whatever, with time as they get idle, they are automatically disposed, so we don't need to worry about that at all. So that seems to be working fine so far. Then after that, there were the leaked connections on image automation controller that quite some users complained about. So Sanskar kind of tracked where the issue was fixed, and then Sunny yesterday released a patch. So in theory, that is now kind of closed. We don't need to worry about that. I tested that, and Sanskar also tested that on the PR. Then moves to libgit to 1.3, and it seems that it is also working. So we shouldn't have a problem going forwards. But potentially we could try to do a test to check that, which probably would be a bit tricky, but something for us to think about. Another PR around some subject is as I just mentioned, the Git migration to 1.3 on image automation controller. I think Stefan made some comments on that. I replied to that. So if you could have another look, that would be great. There will be some follow-up changes, but I was thinking about kind of breaking that apart in two things to make sure that we're making like static changes and testing them thoroughly and making them available to users to kind of play with, so we don't have more issues. Which kind of leads me to the last point. So a while ago, Michael created this list of connection issues with libgit 2. I'm still experiencing some, especially on image automation controller, still investigating. Some of them are consistent even after some of the fixes we've done, and even after going to libgit 1.3. I can quite easily reproduce them now, which is great. So hopefully in the next few days we will get to the bottom of them. But some are really, really weird. Like you get errors without changing anything on the setup, but saying that, for example, can't list authentication methods and so on. I'll probably copy and paste here some of the errors, just kind of keep them in a single place. But that is something that I'm following up on this week.
Okay, so I've approved the upgrade of libgit 2 in image automation controller, but we should create a new issue. You can do that on getting rid of all the go-git operations that we do. We now have a mix of, we use libgit 2 to clone the upstream. Then we use go-git to create a new branch. We use go-git to commit in that branch. Then we use libgit 2 to push the commit. And I think the combination of the two makes things very hard to debug and understand. People in the past reported, oh, source controller is working fine. Image automation controller, it has this some bug or whatever. And if we eliminate the go git code and we rely only on libgit2 for cloning, pushing all the operations, I think it will be a good step forward in extracting the git package out of both controllers into package and have a git package there that does all the operations and yeah, having a more robust library around git in the future.
That makes sense. I'll create an issue to kind of cover that a bit. But one thing that would definitely be useful is using a single library for that, especially on image automation controller, would result in probably less transport being created, because again, like we can't use the same transport across both at a minute at least. So yeah, I think some things might be resolved by that, or at least we would have less connections being open for sure.
Yeah, also, so let's say step one, we get rid of go git in image automation controller. And step two will be move the code that does commits from image automation controller into source controller, the git package, right? So we have all the git code in one place, because right now we use the git package from source controller to do the cloning and the checkout. Then we have some other bits of code into image automation controller to the commit. But source controller already has the commits portion in the tests, because it needs to do commits and so on in the unit test to change things in Git. So we test them that changes are being pulled. So the code is basically duplicated now. The commit side with libgit2, it's somewhere in source controller. Now it ended up also in image automation controller. And we have like two ways of doing commits in image automation controller. In the test part is using libgit2, in the controller part is using gogit. So
I have an alternative proposal, I think. That would be to move the Git code out of the source controller, then switch both controllers to make use of that base library, and then start adding bits back, because otherwise you're kind of polluting your source controller state with things that it's never going to make use of, with the end plan to eventually move it out. So by kind of extracting it, you make the base the new controllerless package, and then you can basically start adding features to support your image automation controller use cases and strengthening the test cases there, etc.
But we already have the commit code in source controller.
Yeah, but then you can move the commit code out of the source controller, switch both controllers over to the package with the git commit code, and then and don't think we have the commit code in a way that it can be used by the image automation controller. We have the code in a way that's used by our testing frameworks, which have access to private methods. But we don't have anything kind of, we don't have, I don't know, utilities to support push operations. We don't have utilities to kind of make commits through a public API. What the source controller has publicly is strategies to check out a repository into a specific directory, and that's where it stops. And what needs to be added is, okay, I want to make changes to files within this repository using a generic API, and something that allows to push using a generic API. And then the beneficial side of that would be that people can say, like, okay, for the image automation controller, all operations are either with GoGit or all operations are either with libgit2. Instead of the kind of mingling we do now, which results in all sorts of uncertainties.
We also have code that commits and pushes to a repo using GoGit, and that code is in the Flux2 bootstrap command. It's a package in Flux2. So we have all these codes scattered around everywhere, right? So yeah.
I
To
think
default.
bringing it into one place and then basically only using the go git things in the CLI, probably.
Yeah.
But using the other implementations in the controllers would be the best thing, because then we can have like this very basic package of pull, push, and commit operations. While changes happen on the file system itself, I would say, to make things easier.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, anyway, first step is to try and rewrite image automation controller with just libgit2 and see if that works. If that works, then we can move to this shared library and do all things from there.
Yeah.
Right, I'll get some of those ideas into an issue on Flux 2 repo and get you guys to just review to make sure I capture everything.
Yeah, but also create an issue just for image automation controller, because I think that's a first step required in order to ensure that all the operations that we are doing now can be done with libgit2. I know there were some things there because so the main difference between what the CLI is doing or everything else is doing in image automation controller is that image automation controller can create also branches. So you say, use this branch, an existing branch, change files in there, but instead of committing back to that branch, what Flux Bootstrap is doing and other things, and our end-to-end test probably, the difference is here that you can say, oh, the changes, create a new branch for it and push that branch upstream, right? So we need to make sure we don't hit any roadblocks with what libgit2 offers. And when we settle, okay, everything works, then we can do the Git package consolidation.
Brilliant. Okay, I'll create those issues.
Thanks.
No worries. Well, I think that's pretty much all from the Git related PRs and issues, unless anyone else have anything else about it.
Super. All right, that's the end of our agenda. Does anyone have any things they still want to highlight or ask for help with? In that case, we're done. All right, thanks a lot, everyone, and
Bye-bye.
see you around.
Have a great day. See you guys later.
Bye.